so much. Gonna go ahead and start the Portland Parks and Recreation Board meeting. And we're starting at 5:02. And Michelle, could we have the roll call, please?
Corbin,
Present?
Ally, present. Casey,
Here.
David,
Here,
Chris.
hey, everybody.
I think I saw Chris. Adrian. I don't see Adrian. Aaron is absent. Sabrina. Suen. Yeah. Matt.
Present.
Patty. Present. Bill.
Good afternoon, I'm here.
Allison.
Present.
And I know Jessica's gonna be a little late. She said she'd come in person.
Thank you so much. And do we have any public comments?
If we have public comment, please raise your hand. Not, then I think we can go ahead. If there's no public comment.
Right, so no public comments. We're gonna move forward with any general announcements. You? Good, go ahead. You have how do we probably
Incoming
new board member.
appointee. Also online.
Yeah, also online, I'm just about to put Andre onto the panelist section, but I see Jacob's camera is also on. So Andre and Jacob and Tommy are present with us tonight. There are 3 of the 6 appointees that we have coming in
Great, thank you.
this year, so welcome. Also, thank you to thank you to everyone that participated in the nominating community. And then also, thank you to those Parks Board members that recommended that their colleagues and friends apply to be part of the Parks Board, because we had a really great pool of interviewers this evening, so.
Did we get any District 1?
Yeah, Tommy right here. Yeah.
We need to. For more than.
And then, for more than one reason, but, just to quickly, since they're here tonight, oh, here's Adrian. I was going to just briefly mention, quick bio overview of the folks that are here tonight that are new. Jacob is a self-proclaimed policy wonk and advocacy professional with a 10-year career in energy efficiency, sustainability, and construction regulation. Andre Buenacosa works currently in business development for TriMet. And then Tommy has a background in graphic design, branding, and sleep medicine, and he has volunteered at a bunch of different nonprofits all over the area. So we're really excited for you folks joining us tonight, and congratulations.
Welcome.
Welcome.
Do you want to move to recommend them now? Since
So
you
we're
just
gonna,
introduced them all? Are you gonna wait on that? Wait on them?
no, we're gonna do a vote via email.
Okay.
And because we only sent out the bios today or yesterday. And also originally we were looking at a May confirmation date through council. But not all of our appointees are available, so it might get pushed to June so we can have everyone go at once. But we'll keep everyone abreast of the date. And we'll be sending out an email for voting after the meeting.
Thank you so much. Is it possible for us to, maybe this might be for the retreat, but it'd be nice to have bios of everybody on the board, so
Yep.
do you
compile them
folks
together.
also know who they're
I think we can do
Yes.
that.
Can definitely do that.
Again, welcome, glad to have you, and thank you so much for being willing to serve.
Should we add on our bios what district we're in, just so we kind of get a sense?
I'm sure that
I have a roster that does list
Okay,
that, so I can
perfect.
send that out to everyone once I have
Thank
it updated.
Wonderful, so moving forward to, unless there's any other general announcements? Swen?
I'm surprised our friends from Portland Bike Polo are not here. So they've been here three times in a row. My family actually went over there to check them out on Mother's Day. And it was really neat. The only thing is majority of them are actually having a tournament in Canada. So we saw them set up and had a little bit of action looking at them, and then I can see why they've been kind of strapped together, what they need to make it work for them. They share the court with other hockey team, and very adorable. I told them that we appreciate that they actually are raving about how much they love our parks, and
Thank you for that report. It's like good news, right? All right, moving forward to the approval of the April meeting minutes. Do we have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Do we have a second? Are there any discussions or any friendly amendments? All those in favor of approving the April minutes as is, please raise your hand.
Thank you.
Do we have any abstentions? Except one
David,
here.
no, it's your list.
Anybody want to vote against the meeting minutes?
I'm gonna say Adrian will need to abstain since she was absent last meeting, I
Okay,
believe.
are we all squared, Michelle?
Yes.
Great, thank you so much. Moving towards the director's report. Director Long, the floor is yours.
Great, thank you. Today I'm just gonna report out briefly on city council, our transition 2.0 and SDC freeze impacts. And that's about it. So last week at council, the Urban Forestry Commission appointments went through, as did a first reading to amend the fee schedule for tree permits. On the 15th, so Thursday, myself and subject matter experts will participate in the Climate Resilience and Land Use Committee meeting. We are not presenting, but they will be discussing budget, so there will likely be lots of questions. So tune in if you are able or interested, or watch after the fact. Also on May 15th, we are presenting the Parks and Recreation budget at the Public Works Service Area budget work session. And then, as I mentioned before, we're hoping that the park board appointees will be heard at the Climate Resilience and Land Use Committee date TBD. In terms of transition, as anticipated, the mayor's proposed budget, which was released last week Monday, although it feels like it was a month ago, eliminates the Vibrant Communities Service Area. So that means on July 1, the Vibrant Community Work Units will be in a new service area. So Portland Children's Levy and the Office of Arts and Culture are going to the Community and Economic Development Service Area, and we and support services will be going to Public Works. And while we continue to expect that this transition will not really directly affect most staff in their day-to-day work, we have created a transition initiative team, and our very own Victor Sanders and Nicholas Sisson will be leading that up on our end, and we're working with colleagues from Public Works Service Area and Community and Economic Development to help on their end. So they're basically focusing on liaisoning with city operations to ensure any technical changes are completed before July 1, basically making sure people get paid. Coordinating briefings and onboarding for the receiving deputy city administrators. And so there's a lot of topics, and I'm trying to focus on the things that are most imminent and important, and then slowly we'll segue into other topic areas of interest. They will be sharing updates with staff and I then with you all, the board. And they'll be supporting the coordination between the Vibrant Communities teams and receiving service areas between now and July 1. And there will likely be work after July 1, but so that's sort of to be determined. The next item that I wanted to, I should also mention, because I don't think we shared this with the board, between now and July 1, with Todd having left, Sarah Huggins, Victor Sanders, Nicholas Sisson, and Vicente Harrison will be reporting to me. Claudio Capizano, Margaret Evans, and Tim Collier will be reporting to DCA Szymanski, so that we can sort of move forward together through to July 1. SDC Freeze Impacts, I'm sure folks saw the news that the mayor and the governor have proposed to suspend collection of SDCs for 3 years or until 5,000 housing units are built, whichever comes first, as a strategy to stimulate housing production. The projected SDC loss for Portland Parks and Recreation from this suspension is approximately $27 million. This will result in a major shortfall in the SDC fund balance. As you all know, or some of you will be learning, SDCs are a critical funding source for parks, supporting the new development of parks, open spaces, and recreational services that serve Portland's growing population. Our approach was to first identify projects where no SDC dollars have yet been spent, and we've submitted a list of projects to the city administrator that would equal close to $27 million. We anticipate getting feedback following budget adoption. So I've checked every couple of days and I think they're getting annoyed with me. So as soon as I learn more, I'll circle back. And then finally, Parks Levy, over the last few weeks, staff and I've been joining Noah Siegel, who's joining us today, Tara Wilkinson from the Intertwine Alliance, and Jessica Green to brief all 4 districts regarding the Parks Levy polling results that you're going to hear tonight. So that's my lead up. I'm going to bury the lead. So that's all I have. I'll just pause for a second to see if anyone has any questions about my verbal report or the written one that you received in your packet.
Please go ahead.
That report, so the proposed SDC freeze, would that impact any projects currently?
It could. Yeah, because all of the SDCs that we have identified for projects are projected SDCs, so. Yes. We have much more than $27 million in SDCs allocated.
Do you know how much?
I don't know how much we have currently, but
Claudio's on the line.
I'm gonna call a friend.
I'm
He might
sorry,
know.
you caught me writing another email. What was the question?
So we're talking about the SDC freeze, and the question was, how many SDCs do we currently have encumbered above and beyond the 27 million that we're targeting?
So I would have to take a look, but it is well over 100 million at this point. So that is our, the bulk of our capital plan. So
I would say, think North Portland Aquatic Center, Steel Bridge Skate Park, Darcel. So those are some of the larger ones. Lauren?
Yeah, currently we have 139 million, as Claudio said, at our beginning fund balance for SDCs. And we have, if you count our 5-year plan, it's way over, it's closer to 300 million of projects.
I have a point of clarification, because we get into acronyms and maybe these are community members that are
Thank you.
paying attention to this for the first time.
SDCs are system development charges. And they are charged to developers, whether residential or private development, new, and they're to cover costs that to mostly infrastructure, so parks, transportation, and water. So growing population, and we have to grow the capacity of those systems to accommodate the new growth. And so we're able to spend the system development charges on new parks, expanded parks, and increased capacity.
Ally, and then you can take it to.
Two questions. One, is it a guarantee that it's only 3 years? What's the, I mean, you make that decision once, what is to stop from going back to that abundant well? Is there any guarantee there? Is it, you know, or is it just, this is kind of the current thought?
Well, I think it's gonna be an actual ordinance that goes to council, and I haven't seen the language, but everything that I've read is stating either 3 years or 5,000 housing units, so
It could be more.
it could be more money if we don't get to, you know, 5,000, I guess, but yeah, there's no guarantees.
And I'm curious, for the 139 million, is that invested? And do you guys ever, you know, 5% of 100 million is 5 million. Do you ever postpone to help build that fund up to be able to utilize more money, especially if you have a short?
We don't, I mean, I'm gonna let Lauren or Claudio speak to this, but we
Yeah.
don't, go ahead.
No, we don't intentionally hold back to generate interest earnings if that was where,
Yeah.
if that was the intention. But in recent years, particularly as interest rates have gone up, that has been a significant source of revenue. But I'll note that in recent years also, as development has declined, we actually have been receiving considerably less in SDCs in the last couple of years. So, but you're right, interest earnings have been a pretty substantial chunk of the overall revenue in the program right now.
I guess my question is there any way to use interest to compensate or delay to compensate for loss of revenue?
Well, we have a projection of interest earnings in our projections already, and so to some degree, the analysis of what they're you know, of the 3-year halt on collections, that was already taken into account as part of that analysis.
Thank you.
Lauren wanted to add something.
Yeah, I just want to add, one thing that happens when you delay things is then you get into the escalation cost. We did a projection of what this is going to cost us, and to do the same work that we have allocated for the projects that we are now canceling, essentially. It's going to take 40% more funds to do it, the same projects in 5 years from now.
So as I said, we submitted a list. We haven't gotten feedback on it yet. And when we do, I'm sure there will be a lot more discussion.
SDC is applied over different types of projects. So are they talking about only taking it off for housing development? So you can still have SDC on non-housing related development, right? So it's not like you are dried up. This is not a blanket thing. It's only applied to housing development, because right now the city just want to have housing units to use up. So do we still have SDC coming then?
Yes, so and that's a really good point, and you are correct. It is just applied to residential. However, because of the nature of parks SDCs, residential units drive the biggest the biggest amount of the charges for that we charge to developers. Because commercial doesn't actually put as much, you know, as the director explained. The whole purpose of SDCs is to meet the growing demand of the city. Commercial development doesn't grow that demand as much as residential units do. New units mean new people mean more use of parks. And so the way that we've structured that that charge is very heavily weighted towards residential.
Unless you're building a baseball stadium.
I would need to defer to our permitting staff to find out exactly what would happen if we did a stadium.
Thank you. Let's go ahead and.
Chris, you have your hand up.
This isn't a question, it's more of a comment. I think it's just unfortunate to hear this compounded with the general budget scenario that we all are in as a city, and knowing that even the SDC revenue from commercial spaces is not generally very high. We don't have a great commercial outlook for spaces in development. Keep getting news, even a lot of our commercial beloved institutions are closing. And if we are developing, and this is supposed to be an incentive for residential housing, especially at the level of units that the state and the mayor really want to see, those, and they're primarily would be rental units, or smaller units, those folks are going to be utilizing the park system for well-being, and as recreation spaces. And so there's that incentive to build those residential units, but then not that income coming into that park for expansion, for well-being of those community members. So this is less of a question, just more of a comment. And I'm sorry that I didn't say this, but at the beginning of the meeting, and I don't know if my letter went out, when my term ends, I will be stepping off the board just because of other commitments I have. And so I'm really hoping that other board members, and even I as a continuing and as a community member, will bring and submit some written comment to the city council as they're considering this, because I think it has a pretty significant long-term impact on the park system, especially if what they want to do is increase housing for folks in the city.
Thank you, Chris. Any other questions or comments? Just to dovetail off of that, I've seen in prior cities, this idea of kicking the can down the road, not necessarily city not necessarily getting the outcome that they expected of it. And I completely agree with Chris that we need to be on this as board members, as residents, as Portlanders, and really speak to how it seems like the parks are being used to plug holes in the larger budget situation. I won't say more at this point, but Director Long, do you have more in the report that you want to discuss?
I do not. The only other thing I was going to do is remind folks that we have 2 grand openings coming up. Mill Park is currently scheduled for Thursday, May 22nd from 4 to 6. I have learned that we may have to delay that one, but save the date for now. And then Park Lane Park, June 12th from 3 to 6. And we'd love for as many Parks board members to come out as possible. Wear your badges proudly. And then also in September, it looks like we're going to have a grand opening for Mount Scott Community Center. So
nice.
Lots of good things coming, despite some of the bad. I like to bookend it a little bit.
We're in tension right now.
Yep.
Tension. So let's say we're wrestling with possibilities.
Yep.
Nothing
So that's the end of
solid
my
yet.
report. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Long. It looks like we have somebody online.
Oh, Adrian, you have your hand up?
You're muted, Adrian.
Sorry, just want to say here on that comment that, you know, it's a double whammy for parks, and parks really sort of taking the brunt of budget constraints historically and now. And I'm wondering if there has been any discussion for other sources of funding around this. It may be too soon, but.
Yeah, we haven't had any discussions around SDC funding or replacing that, finding an alternative source. I do know that this is sort of separate, but also sort of tangentially related. I do know that the controller, the audit that came out regarding our asset management in the city sort of spurred some of our counselors to ask for a citywide asset management plan. And I know that there is interest in addressing the deferred maintenance backlog for citywide and thinking about it more holistically, which is great because it'll be the first time, at least since I've been here, where they're having a conversation about it citywide and not just bureau by bureau. So it's not SDCs, but it is an alternative funding source and one that is direly needed for us in our deferred maintenance. So it's a different pot of money, but I would say even greater need there. So there's that. And we haven't really had a chance to regroup. Like I said, we haven't even received feedback from the project list that was submitted. So it's a little bit early to talk about alternatives, but I appreciate where your head's at.
Thanks.
Yeah. Also, the letters that the board has been sending out has been speaking to, yes, the levy, support that, but also support innovation opportunities beyond the levy and looking for a sustainable funding strategy for parks. So I think we have to do a yes levy, and we need to continue to have this conversation and really solve the issue.
Right.
Versus kicking the can down the road, piecemealing things together, one-time funding, using parks as a way to plug holes or not recognize the professional and the labor force that they have, as if they can just bring in volunteers to supplement what is going to be lost without adequate funding. And I think speaking to that in our letters and keep on reminding folks that, you know, a full-time employee cannot be replaced by volunteers. Other thoughts before we move on to the next part? Right, so thank you, Director Long. Moving to the working group reports. We have the Board Affairs Working Group. Any comments from the working group, Casey? Are there any questions?
Nothing in addition.
Thank you, Casey. Any questions from the board? All right, moving to land use and infrastructure. Any comments? David?
I don't have anything to bring, yeah.
Thank you. Any questions from the board? Community Engagement Working Group, Sabrina. I have to apologize. I did not send in our report. But Sabrina, anything to report on?
No, nothing from me.
And any questions from the board? Moving to culture, nature, and recreation. Ally.
I also did not submit a report, my apologies. We had our kind of first meeting as our new group, and then the next two meetings will be devoted to us speaking with rec and nature and getting sort of big overviews so that we can then set our agenda for the coming 6 to 12 months.
So much, Ally. Any questions from the board? Nomination committee, Chris, thank you so much for heading that. Looks like you got us a good group of future board members. Any comments that you'd like to share?
I would have to say that I ended up not heading it. I just had work demands, and so there were other folks in the group that really took the lead, and I take no credit for that. So I might hand it over to them to speak on that.
Casey, Sue-Ann, and Bill were really great nominating committee members. So
And Michelle was fantastic in making sure everything worked. And Joey did really good in asking questions.
Thank you, everybody, for contributing to this work. And it looks like we're saying, looks like we have some really great people coming on. And unfortunately, we're going to also lose some really great folks that are stepping off. So thank you for your service. And then we have the financial sustainability Okay, Ally, go ahead.
Were we able, and Chris, I'm so sorry to see you go, and I understand, we're going to miss you, because we had such a great pool, were we able to grab someone, an additional person to?
Yes.
Excellent.
Looks like 6
We're
people
on it.
coming in, right?
Yes, we will have 6 people, which is I think the most the board has ever brought on at once, and so
Wow,
let's see how that
That's
goes.
great. Have a cohort coming in.
Yeah.
Financial Sustainable Working Group, Casey again, any comments?
Well, I've noticed that you've given me 15 minutes, so I don't know how much you want me to go.
Well, we also put Claudio on
There, good.
because, yeah, because I kind of figured that we might want to, since you just had your Fizzy-Wig meeting, that we might want to have Claudio come on, and because we are in the middle of budget work, that it would be helpful for the full board to get an update, so.
Why do you want to go? Otherwise, I'm giving an impassioned narrative.
All right, well, why don't I start? And I will share my screen with just the main slide. I think that I know that we've got some new members. So I wasn't planning on doing a full sort of review of where where we've been through the process to get to here, but really was just going to be providing sort of key takeaways from the changes from the administrators recommended to the mayor's proposed. So why don't I pop that up, and maybe we can work backward from there. Where is it? There we go. So, so can folks see my screen okay?
Yes.
All right. So this is a very quick summary of the changes that happened from the administrators recommended. So for those that aren't aware, we submitted a requested budget in January. The city administrator was working with the deputy city administrators through February, and in March issued an unbalanced proposal for the city that included some, not all, of our requested reductions. And so this is the delta between those and where we landed, where the mayor's proposed landed. So a couple of I think that generally thematically what you'll see here is the mayor's focus on restoring public programs, and then also with a focus on places where we do leverage volunteers. So Sun Community School Program, that was one of the key add backs. As well as Neighborhood Community Center. There was some discussion around which, but that whole package has been added back. So we're not having additional discussions about that right now. And then the citywide sports program. So just to make a distinction here, this is not all sports in parks and recreation. This is the direct delivery of sports programming by park staff, and that includes Golden Ball, and that was one of the key aspects of the mayor's desire to buy that back. There were additional reductions that were not in the initial city administrators recommended, and those are listed below. Those help to fund those things that were added back. And I'm not going to go into each of those, but you can see that for the most part, that did have an impact on things that are related to maintaining our parks. I will note the enterprise efficiencies item down at the bottom. That's $1.5 million, $1.55 million. That was to make up for, well, it does two things. Number one is it addresses the lack of a funding model for vibrant community support services. So we were going to be charging out some of those costs associated with the vibrant community support services to the other members of the vibrant communities service area. Since vibrant communities is going away, that funding model does not work, and so there are a number of additional reductions on the staffing side there. That is also part of the mayor's desire to see efficiencies coming out of a number of reorganizations that are happening citywide around central services. So on the right side, you see all the resource changes. And so between the additional cuts and the net increase in resources, That's what balances out that those cuts added back. One thing that I'll note is that a big piece of the resource changes was $1.9 million in additional beginning fund balance that's being budgeted. That's based on projections for this year. So we spend less and make more this year than originally projected. That becomes balance at the end of this year, falls to balance for next year. That is a one-time resource, and so it does tend, by buying those things back, it does tend to grow the long-term deficit that we're trying to address through additional gap closing in future years or through a change in the levy a change in the levy rate during the next referral. So that's kind of the key takeaway here for those things, and I guess maybe I'll leave it to the group to find out how much we want to actually talk about sort of the process to date and the other items that are in the proposed, because we do have over 80 packages. We've tried to summarize them as part of this slide deck, which is one that we're going to be delivering to our new service area, or with our new service area to council on Thursday. But I'm happy to do whatever works for the group.
Thank you. Opening up the floor to the board.
Casey.
Thank you. Thank you, Claudia. Appreciate that. So I just to kind of, well, first off, I want to thank everybody that, we had the administrator's budget came out, and pretty much all of you guys really went out there and contacted your council person in your district, and told them, that it wasn't, what they were doing really wasn't a good thing. If you attended any of the district hearings, you saw a lot of people who came up and spoke up for parks. A lot of them were about the Sun community programs. A lot of them were about after school programs. And so there was a significant outcry in terms of the suggested cuts. But what the mayor's done is that he heard part of it, but not all of it. And he's reinstituted some programming and cut others. And so what we've got is we're kind of in the same place we were before with different line items. Now it's more maintenance. Now it's more of a maintenance issue. And it's a more of an administrative issue. Claudia, Sarah, or Director Long, you can correct me, but we're looking at about 44.5 full-time and 17 seasonal layoffs. We're looking at cuts that are going to come to maintenance, most significantly swing hour maintenance, and then daily maintenance being reduced as well. We're looking at staffing at community centers for sports programs being reduced. We're looking at increased fees for people who are doing recreational opportunity programs. And even though the point of the levy was to expand programming, particularly the people who didn't have access to it. And we are looking at certain programs that are going to be put back on just for the summer, and then they won't be billed up for next summer. So my pitch at the end of the day is going to be, we need to do the same thing again. Each of us needs to contact the people in our district as individuals, not as necessarily board members. And at the end of this, I'm going to ask for a motion to authorize the group that wrote the letter before to draft up another letter that will be questioning this budget and possibly also the SDC move, although we may need two different letters for that.
Thoughts from the board? Glenn?
Appreciate all the work that's been put forward. It's such a difficult time. And when I was reading Director Long's report, and also some of the dirt,
Pay dirt.
There's maybe I'm more sensitive to that now. The amount of work that's been done by the maintenance folks, I want to say it's maintenance work. It's kind of thankless until you realize why is this not the way it's supposed to be, and where is the people who's going to fix it, clean it, trim it? And they are not at the highest ranking of pay scale. And then if we are cutting maintenance, the impact is, I made this analogy yesterday at the Fizzywick meeting. We have a cracked bridge, and it's been supporting it by a lot of little toothpicks. And the city kept asking, how many more toothpicks can we take away from you? And it's almost as if we have done such a good, Parks has done such a good work that we take it for granted. And the hard work it's being seen as they can use a few people, they don't need that, they don't need this, taking everything away. And I think we are already at a spread really thin. And Parks is not a bureau that complains. So we just kind of suck it up and then keep working. And but if the board cannot, if in a sense, everyone else who uses Parks, we need to have a voice out there just to make sure that if the city council and the mayor decide to cut, they are really gonna be responsible for the outcome. That I don't think we're gonna be able to see it right away, but then eventually everybody will be scratching their head and say, what happened here? Well, by then, it's very hard to get the maintenance folks to come in, and also a lot of the work they do, it's not able to be done by just any volunteers. I think that's just dumbed down people's expertise and abilities. And I just don't think any volunteer can just come in and then replace our maintenance package of work and skills.
Thank you, Sue-Ann. Ally?
Yeah, just adding to Sue-Ann, it also goes counter to the mayor's desire to have a not, less trash ridden and, more kept up city. I think that's part of his vision and what he's doing, but I think he's working against himself in this way. And I agree with Sue-Ann, it's the kind of thing that people aren't gonna jump up and protest right now, but they're gonna have a lot of criticism for Parks a year from now on the upkeep and maintenance, and the heat is gonna fall on Parks rather than the decision from the mayor and city council, which is the word frustrating doesn't quite cover it. Another question, but I don't remember that, sorry, or another comment.
I'll say this, I think it's important to be explicit with the fallout of lack of maintenance. For folks who don't have backyards, that their only access to nature and recreation is the public park system. Means that, if they have to travel farther to get to the type of green spaces and the nature that they want to enjoy, they may not be able to enjoy very long because there's no bathrooms open. And human biology doesn't allow you to just hold out. And so what we can expect is human biowaste, which leads to degradation, which leads to people not coming to the park or trusting the park. It means not bringing your kids to the park because of the lack of maintenance and care and sanitation that will surely accrue over time. So when we're talking to folks and when we're writing our letters, I think it's important to be explicit about the fallout. And it's true, community members don't have the expertise to clean up bio-waste. They don't have the expertise to possibly clean up needles in our parks when they're left fallow for folks to congregate, because we don't have the staff folks cleaning it up, we don't have the people at our parks. And it's gonna cost so much more money to remediate the situation. Sometimes removing layers of dirt and resodding a park so people feel safe enough to be walking around and to have their kids in it. So when we're writing our letters, when we're thinking about what this all means, be very explicit and draw a picture of what the future looks like when we don't invest in the very thing that makes Portland in a lot of ways, right? That people move here. It's an environmental justice issue. There are community members that are gonna have less access to recreation, to safe recreation. So again, be explicit with your letters as you write them as community members. Please let folks know that the expertise of Parks and Recs can be offloaded to volunteers. And the other thing, as a resident, as a community member, I think we also need to push to make the budget process legible to everybody. I don't know if anybody has been watching the meeting, but even our council members are having a hard time deciphering where money is going, where it's coming, where it's putting into. And so how are we gonna make informed decisions as constituency if we can't read the documents and know what's actually happening within our own government? So I'll be quiet after this, but I wouldn't compartmentalize it, you know, I wouldn't separate the SDCs from the levy, from the defunding. And I think it all needs to be centralized and a holistic narrative needs to be put in place. So I said my piece. It looks like there's a hand on the
Adrian,
screen.
you have your hand up.
Yeah, just a quick comment and a question. So the comment is that, you know, the rates of dysentery are increasing in the Portland metro area and Multnomah County in particular, and it's really thought to be from homeless access to sanitation or other public members' access to good sanitation. And Parks is part of the solution. So, you know, I think there is a real safety. It's not just, I'm just reiterating what, you know, others in the group have said, that, you know, it is a safety issue. It's not just a visual thing. And then the second, the other part is a question, and that is what percentages have come down for the other areas of the city in terms of percent cuts at this level and, you know, magnitude of the cuts? Because again, I think it's this, you know, not reflecting the value of parks. So.
I don't know if we've looked at the percentage of the comparison of proposed and recommended and proposed. We've been busy focusing on our own budget. But Claudio, if you have anything to add, yeah.
Yeah, no, I will also say that that the citywide materials have been somewhat difficult to interpret as well, and so it is difficult to really clarify exactly what's happening between the base and all the changes for each of the bureaus. So it would be, I think that's a good question to direct possibly to the city budget office to help sort of understand if there are differential impacts.
I think there's a hand up. Easy, go ahead.
Thank you. Historically, you know, Parks has been picked on more than anybody else historically, because it's the second biggest pot. And by and large, public safety is not one that they will touch. My understanding is that in the mayor's budget, public safety is also not being touched. And like you folks have all mentioned, maintenance certainly, but degradation of parks is a public safety issue, both in terms of what's out there as well as, you know, for anybody who knows the broken window theory, the broken window theory. You know, you have a bad park because it's not being maintained, it's going to get tagged, it's going to get trashed, and the community is going to go down. So, you know, I'm not being alarmist. This is, urban planners do this, say this all the time. So to the extent that it can be seen that the reduction in general funds going to parks is actually being used to support public safety, that's not right, because maintaining public parks is a public safety issue. So if everybody's done, I can make a motion.
Do it.
All right. So for, for those of you who may not remember, we actually, the chairs had an ad hoc funding and levy strategy ad hoc committee that basically drafted up the last letter we did. And I'm just going to work off of that. That was Ally, me, and Corbin. We invite anybody else who wants to join us. That'd be great. Hint, hint, Suen. But I will make a motion to authorize the Funding and Levy Strategy Ad Hoc Committee provide written and potentially oral testimony to City Council in the form and content it deems appropriate, objecting to the mayor's proposed budget insofar as it seeks reductions in general fund distributions to parks, in particular reductions in parks maintenance. That's my motion. And just one other thing, I believe, and Director Long, Sarah, you might be able to correct me, that the place for this is the May 21st hearing. Right now, that's the one. It's not, there isn't one that came up beforehand in the past 2 days. Just want to make sure.
That's correct.
Thank you. That's my motion.
We have a second.
I second.
All right, any discussion? I think part of the packet that we possibly be putting together is some sort of template for board members, maybe to help them, for those who want to send letters on their own or talking points. I also think it's important for the working groups, and we've asked this before, if there are particular talking points that you think needs to be added to the letter based on your lens, coming from financial sustainability, community engagement, and the other working groups, I would love to hear that. It looks like we have two. We have Ally and then Matt.
Yeah, just wanting to hear from park staff. Obviously, we talked about maintenance for this, but there's a lot of things that are cut in this budget. So the letter we're talking about is focusing on maintenance. Are there any other issues that park staff want to raise that should also be included in the letter? I know not everything gets saved, right? It's like, what do you grab from the house that's on fire? So is there anything else you all are hoping we grab?
And if you can't say it now, just send it to us in letter form, bullet points or what have you, so we can make sure that gets included in our message.
I will say that one of the items that stand out for me is the swing shift and the trash. Those are two that stand out to me. The swing shift is something that we created with the levy. It was something we've never had before. It made a tremendous difference.
Can you
And then
explain that?
And the utility
technically?
workers, Tanya, hit it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's part of the maintenance, you asked for something aside from maintenance. Utility worker crew and swing shift crew, I mean, essentially, someone here said it, I think somebody did. We, even with the tremendous gains, and we're super thankful with the increase in funding for our parks with the levy, we are not fully staffed for what the amount of resources, the care that is needed in the use of our parks and natural areas and trails. And so one way of solving that with the levy funding was to try to create athletics person, so like teams of people that would come and help, like helps on the way, right? Like you're there and you like too much, you're overwhelmed, helps on the way. So utility worker crew essentially is a crew that we send around to all the different zones once every 8 working days, and they, instead of one park tech with 2 hands trying to take care of the parks, there's a crew that comes and can help with the other projects. And also the way we funded that was we used to use prison work crews. And so for a lot of good reasons, we stopped doing that. And so that's a gap, right? When you have big projects and you need, it's labor, right? You need labor. And so that's the utility worker crew, which is one of the ones that really, that's really gonna be a big hit. And then swing shift for the evening as well. I think On the programming side, City Nature, I think it gets lost in the messaging or with recreation as programming, it is slightly different. In particular, our youth conservation crew, that is, it's a program, it also contributes towards our maintenance. And it contributes towards our goals to diversify our workforce. We have lots of folks that start in that program as teens and land jobs in environmental work.
There's like
parks.
over 60%
Yes.
people of color.
Yes, so
And
that's.
it is, it's a teen youth workforce. So I think those are good ones to mention. And you said it very quickly, but I just wanted to like put a finer point on it, and then we should probably move on. One park tech takes care of 6 to 7 parks every day.
On average, well, they cannot do that.
Right, so just
yeah.
like finer point.
Yeah.
And that's with the additional levy funding. So.
Who decides on keeping that person's job? I mean, it's just ridiculous to have someone else who say, well, you can cut all that. And then, but then you all know when you're gonna bleed to death.
Sue Ann, we've provided all of the information that we can, and other people are making a decision. And a decision was made to restore some programs and cut others. And honestly, I mean, we're hopeful that the board will put their voice towards restoring some of these other cuts that are really gonna be detrimental.
Do you have any other partners who are also voicing their concern? Or, and not just the foundation, I mean, also like other partners?
Well, I've got to say that, if you all went to a lot of the budget listening sessions, it's a pretty organized effort. I mean, when you've got hundreds of volunteers for Golden Ball and then 1,000 families, they were pretty convincing, right? They were showing up in their uniforms with photos of kids playing ball, like they were pretty convincing. And they were pretty organized. And I don't think we have that same, we have a lot of volunteers. We have a lot of volunteers that do stewardship work. We have a lot of friends of groups that do work in natural areas, but they just didn't come out for that, for City Nature and the youth conservation crew. And I think it was said before, the maintenance of our developed parks is also a little bit invisible, right? So it's hard. Yeah, and staff do advocate, right, quietly, but we know they're doing it, and they are, activating their stakeholders.
So can we expect?
I've just seen Lauren has.
And Matt still.
Yeah,
And you're
thank you.
Right.
But I'm gonna say something, because it's in the title for another month, right? Can we get the verbiage, the numbers from Parks and Rec? So we can make sure that we intertwine that into our letters, into our speaking points.
Yes, we can do that.
And how soon do you think we will be able?
I'll
I
send
understand
that
you're
slide
really busy.
right, like in minutes.
Wonderful.
That
Thank you.
slide is, yeah.
All right.
Says it all.
Thank you. And so we have Matt, and then Lauren, are you adding to the conversation already happening, or are you starting a new conversation?
I just want to add to Tanya's comment, additional to the swing shift, we, our weekend crew of electrician, plumber, facilities maintenance technician that would address emergencies in our restrooms and that kind of thing is also on the chopping block. And then, as Casey mentioned, the SDC reduction, we often use our SDCs in combination with our major maintenance funds to do a better project and fix a park and the amenities in it. So that's also a huge hit to us. Thank you.
Thank you. Matt, maximum.
Yeah, just want to clarify the date and then also who are we sending this to? So I heard, I think the 21st. So we want to get those comments in early next week.
As
Is that
soon as
correct?
possible.
Yeah,
because
if
we're
not
gonna be
earlier.
drafting to make sure it gets submitted to city council and the mayor.
Yeah, so that was the other question, is going to both Preferably the district we live in and the mayor.
So individual letters you can send as community members. The board letter that we're gonna do is gonna be a little different, and we would need whatever comments from the board. So we can submit that prior to the meeting.
But we're not individually sending out a mass email to all counselors. We're focusing on our district.
Your district, your personal letters. If
Can
you
we send something to the Oregonian?
As a resident of Portland,
From the board?
if it's from the board, it's something that we will have to vote on as the board.
So we.
But as individuals, if you wanted your own op-ed and send it in, it is within your right to do so as a community member. So are you putting something forward? Because we are in discussion mode at this time because Casey did put up a motion. Do we have a second behind it? Is there?
I just think that if we write this letter with some passion and some facts, it's to the city council and me, I don't know if they read everything or not, but if it's in the Oregonian, letter to the editor,
Are you proposing like an open letter?
the same letter, same passion, same powerful message, and bring up everybody's awareness, and then you can wake other people up and say, oh my gosh, we don't want that.
So are you volunteering to help accomplish this?
Casey?
Because you can't be volunteering people to do other labor. I mean, it's something, it's on the table. Is this something that you want to contribute to?
Well, aren't our pants on fire right now?
Is that a yes?
Sure.
Okay, it's on record, right? Okay.
Can I just say that an op-ed and a letter, I would say have some differences in terms of your audience and how technical you are. And so I would say, I wouldn't recommend them being the same thing. I would recommend one being much more directed to the public to engage them and hopefully get them to understand the ramifications, but much more colloquial than you would. I love that colloquial is not a colloquial word. Yeah, than the letter. So that would be, I would say it's probably two separate things, and the main letter will inform what we put into an op-ed if we want to do an op-ed.
So do we want to bring in a friendly amendment to the motion that Casey put forward? Because we were talking about letters to council and testimony. This is a third one. Who wants to add that language?
Actually, if I can make a suggestion, I'm a little worried it might get that some individual people are gonna get overdone or overworked. In following Sue Ann's, I keep on thinking about in the past, op-eds were done on park issues by individual board members, kind of as a group. Like 2 or 3 would kind of go off and then file an op-ed. This may be a good situation for that. Where we have the board go to council because we advise council. We don't advise the Oregonian or the populace. Our job is to advise, the council and the mayor and administrator. My suggestion is that maybe 1 or 2 or 3 folks, individual board members, come up with an op-ed to send in, and they would say, we're board members, but we're writing as individuals because we don't advise anybody who's a public. And this is what we think is going on.
Thoughts?
Jen, did you have
Volunteers?
something to add regarding this?
Not about Casey's comment, but about the budget proposals topic. Yes, so I can wait until Casey's is addressed.
Sorry, who was speaking?
That was Jen.
Jen Cairo.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I'm sorry I'm late, folks. I had something that came up, but I just joined the meeting, and I would like to say something about the budget proposals when the time's right.
Yeah, this was beyond in addition to from the original question of what else in the budget.
Yes, please go ahead.
Yeah, so while all of the budget reduction packages across there are of course of note. One item that's been coming to our attention has been the reduction of the summer camps in there as well.
The 7,000 campers that will be.
Oh, we have to get those exact numbers again. Yeah, it's in the thousands. And so it's, but it's currently part of a buyback right now. And so it will be happening this summer. And so in some ways, like it's a program that will be happening this summer, where it goes through, but then the decision for the cut will then happen next year. Where we know that that's a program that provides a lot of childcare services as well for affordable options for youth to stay engaged during the summer. So just an opportunity to be able to highlight that in a way where in its current package iteration it is right now. It's like, oh, it's can move on for the summer. And so the decision for that in coming years.
Thank you. All right, is there any more discussion? So we still have the question of the op-ed and who would like to do that, organize that, and understanding that writing an op-ed doesn't necessarily mean it gets published.
Dr. Corbin, this is Jen. Since Maximo went in terms of impacts, maybe I should.
You have an addition? Go ahead.
I do. Since I'm late, I missed all of your discussion and I apologize again. Was Councillor Zimmerman's amendment that would eliminate approximately 1/3 of urban forestry discussed at all?
It was not.
It was not, and I'm glad that you're bringing it up. Please speak to that.
Councillor, this was in Willamette Week, I believe last week. Councillor Zimmerman proposed at a council meeting eliminating our permitting and regulation team, which in effect would table the tree code. It would also eliminate the 823 trees at the city's tree SPOC, meaning single point of contact. It has really far-reaching implications. His proposal didn't have a whole lot of detail in it. It was eliminating 37, which is that entire team, which actually has 5 separate programs in it. But retaining 5 tree inspectors and putting them in the Portland Permitting and Development program, which is where some of you will recall there used to be the Bureau of Development Services, and then in an effort to expedite private property development projects, the city reorganized and took parts of the infrastructure, each of the infrastructure bureaus, and moved them over into what became PP&D to help make things move faster. And that included roughly a handful of forestry positions that work exclusively on private property development regulations. Those would be the only regulations in Title 11 that would continue, given his proposal. So street tree regulations, private property large tree regulations, not in development, regulation of city-owned properties, involvement in capital improvement projects like the Rose Quarter I-5 project, the 82nd Street redevelopment, which we're trying to get a tree median in there, and the community there is really supporting it. The staff who do that work would all go away, and the list is quite long. Those folks handle about 10,000 permit applications a year, 25,000 emails and phone calls. And then each of those permit applications has many steps after it. Just receiving the application, it involves tree inspections and communication with the property owner, and of course, enforcement of the code after that. It also includes required planting. The city's code does require trees get planted in some cases when they're removed, or payment that we use in our planting programs like the free yard tree and free street tree program. It's being discussed at council on Thursday is my understanding. I heard that today.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
There's a lot going on. Understatement, right? In the decade that is 2025. With that said, we do have a motion on the table.
and there's still a percolating curiosity around the op-ed situation. There's only 3 of us, I believe, on the levy and funding or funding and levy ad hoc group. We can't have more than 5, I believe.
And those 3 people have written a lot of letters.
Yeah.
Because you're good at it.
With that said, sharing the labor is important, especially we need to turn these things out quick. So I'm not against the op-ed, but I also believe that if you're going to suggest something, you should also participate in it. And we should have folks that can actually do the work. So are there folks interested in doing the op-ed letter that are willing to carry it over the finish line?
I will be part of the op-ed, but I cannot do it on my own because I just not good at it. But I would love to have people be part of it and then with more brains and writing abilities.
So we have 1 added to the group. Others? Share your talents, folks. Share your time.
I can offer to chip in as much as I can in terms of the op-ed, hopefully using the letter as sort of a starting point to gather data and kind of a base of the message.
And I just want to just follow up on Allison's that I would think that for the letter writing for the board, that we're sharing it with the op-ed people so they can start getting ideas as well, you know.
Thanks. Thank you. It sounds like we have our 5.
Go. Can I ask a clarifying question?
Matt, go ahead.
Are we writing an op-ed and a letter to the editor, or is it just the op-ed?
So what is on the table is letter to mayor and council.
Yeah, I got that.
We have an op-ed that is gonna be put out to maybe the Oregonian. And then we have writing testimony for folks who actually show up at the meetings and have these talking points. Then individually, as board members, you can contribute your individual letters as community members.
I think what I heard Casey say was letters to the editor might be more likely to actually get published than an op-ed.
Isn't that the same thing?
Actually, what I was suggesting is that the op-ed, I think it's more appropriate, and you can vote over this for me, that an op-ed come from individuals who say they're members of the board, but are also saying they're writing this individually, as opposed to the board
organizing it.
Yeah, well, saying that it's from the board because it's our purview is advice to council, the mayor, and the administrator.
Thank you. All right, I've been instructed that we need to move this forward and make a decision because we have a presenter that actually, you know, has a life and needs to do other things.
Does he?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes,
He has a daughter
part-
who has to go to a soccer game, so.
which is important considering the group that we're in, right?
And probably in a park.
Right? So we need to make sure that that happens. With all that said, how do we want to phrase this?
My suggestion is that the motion stays as it is, and you can vote against me here, but then other people just get together on their own that we would then help write an op-ed. So the only motion would affect the one that we're sending to council.
Does that work for you, Suen and Ally?
Let's do it.
All right. We have a motion, we have a second, we had a discussion. Anybody speak now or forever hold your peace? All right, all those who are, that's gonna vote for the motion put forward by Casey, all those in favor, please raise your hand. Michelle, please let us know when you have tallied us.
Everyone's voted yes.
All right, so is that a unanimous?
Yes.
Wonderful. Not to be mistaken with anonymous, right? Okay.
And then just one other quick thing. Michelle is feeding stuff in the chat. Please read it. And I want to make sure, Michelle, when you say public comments for the 521 meeting is due Wednesday, you're not talking about tomorrow morning, right?
Yes, 5/21 is a Wednesday.
Yeah,
So
okay,
that-
but not,
that's the next opportunity to give oral public testimony. And that is Wednesday morning, 9 AM during the full council session, 5/21.
One
Not
last thing on
tomorrow.
that,
Not
we have our
next week.
letter, we also ideally would have someone there giving oral testimony and
Yes.
signing up. So do we have a person, or we can do that later, but we
might need to do that all.
Okay.
Those who can be there on Wednesday, please reach out so we can have folks giving public testimony. All right. Thank you, folks. Good conversation. We're gonna be moving forward to the Portland Parks Foundation. Rapid fire if possible.
Jessica, I was gonna suggest, did you want to concede your time for?
Oh,
the-
yeah, I'm just gonna introduce Noah and
Okay,
jump
okay.
right into it. I am gonna say, sign up to testify early on the 21st, so hopefully then you can march yourself over to the Laurelhurst Club and maybe celebrate some happy amendments to the parks budget at the Friends and Allies Summit. Anyway, send you more on that later, but I wanna just jump right into it. We have Noah online. The Portland Parks Foundation, you know this, I've introduced it in the past, but we are in partnership with the city as well as the Intertwine Alliance, working to advance the conversation of the levy. And we have been meeting with constituents, we have been meeting with counselors, we've been meeting with PPNR and vibrant communities and having a lot of conversations to understand what the process is for a levy referral, as well as the content and the rate. And so Noah, we have hired, he is here today to lead this whole, I guess, project. And part of this has been doing some polling on the levy. So we recently did some polling. We're here tonight to share the results of polling, which also just helps lead into more conversation about the levy. And so hopefully there'll be time for some follow-up questions and also to give a little bit of an update on where council is on process and timeline, because it's all happening very fast. Ideally for a July referral, which means a June filing for the July referral. So that's where we're at, on top of all the budget conversations. So with that said, I will introduce Noah. He is online and go from there.
Hey, everyone. Thanks for having me. Thank you, Jessica. I have a longtime parks advocate myself, worked on issues at Metro and at the ballot quite a bit. So this has been important work for me. Really appreciate working with park staff, and just in terms of the journey we've been on, we been engaged with, I guess what I would say is we're looking ahead and anticipating what a campaign would look like should there be a referral. And so in order to do that, we did polling, but we're also talking to a lot of community organizations, labor, friends groups, just trying to understand where everybody is at. And that's part of why I'm here tonight too, in addition to just presenting you with this information. And then this polling has been presented to all 4 council districts in some way or another, either to staffers or the principals. And so we've gotten, some feedback and reaction, but this is part of what will be informing their decision on the renewal. And I'll just go ahead and bury my lead, or blow my lead, I should say, not bury, which is, I'll tell you as we're going through this, that it's a difficult environment for taxes. A lot of it, I think, has to do with the instability in the economy, right? But I am certain it has to do with the instability in the economy right now. And there's just a lot of anxiety that is affecting people's attitudes towards an increase. There's obvious support for a renewal at 80 cents, but as you all know, you're well informed, an 80-cent renewal means basically holding to the mayor's proposed budget in some form or another, and some 25% cuts to the current parks level. So we tested a number of ways of looking at increases in addition to a renewal. So I will go ahead and just walk you through. I do want to just apologize, but I have a really hard stop at 7. I also have to get out to a park for soccer. So I will try to breeze through this and take as many questions as possible, I think is the best thing to do. So this was a pretty robust poll. We worked with the firm FM3, which has done a lot of polling on parks, not just in Portland, but well, really all across the country, but mostly on the West Coast. It was a sample size of 600, which gives us a pretty decent ability, you know, a relatively small margin of error, and the ability to look a little deeper down by district and demographics to see where people's opinions are. And one more thing I should say is it's adjusted for an electorate in an off year, an odd year election, so not a congressional or a presidential election year, which generally speaking has a different composition in turnout. And you know, starting from what I think is maybe the most important thing is the relationship that Portlanders have with their parks. And again, I doubt this will surprise any of you, but over 70% of Portlanders are in a park or community center at least once a month. And you know, a healthy majority are there more than once a week. So this is a pretty active part of people's lives. And I think as we go through the polling, you'll see that nothing, any hesitations around funding have nothing to do negatively about their experience in the parks themselves at all. And you can see this has held steady, you know, from before the pandemic through the pandemic. This is just part of the DNA of the city, of how people live here. So we tested, we started at a level of $1.80, and I'll just explain, because you guys are tracking a lot of details, that the levy proposal that came forward to keep parks whole was $1.60. In addition to that, there was a strong advocacy component around the friends groups, primarily saying we should really be looking at a capital maintenance component. Even if it's, you know, a little bite of the pie, we should be moving in that direction. So we started at the maximum ask that would allow us to do all those things without having to make hard choices, and then tested price sensitivity working our way down. So I just wanted to explain that $1.80 level. And you know, the results were okay, I guess is the way I would put it. That, you know, we have a slim majority at 52% support, very few undecideds. Our definite yeses are smaller than we would like. Definite nos are more dug in. And you know, it's not so much the starting numbers that are of concern, but people don't move very much as they hear messaging, positive and negative. So it's a bit of a climb for talking to people about an increase. That said, no matter how much messaging we came at them with, or how much we explained to them the situation, the support never goes below 50% in the poll. So that's, you know, that's somewhat encouraging. You know, a renewal at 80 cents is as close to a slam dunk as you could possibly have. 66% right out of the gate support in all 4 districts. So at the very least, we know that people want to continue paying the tax that they currently are paying for parks. We then forced people to choose, and we split the sample between the $1.80 and the $1.60 just to see if there was any difference. But what this slide conveys is we introduced the notion of, hey, how do you feel if we tell you that by voting to renew, you're going to get a lot of cuts in the parks? How does that affect your opinion about how you would vote? And so you see that of those people, and we can break this down by their intensity of support, but you know, that sort of strengthens 53% support, an increase, and maybe more importantly, the intensity of support increases. So people who support the park, people who are supporters of a park's levy funding measure, become more supportive when they learn more about the cuts. And don't want to vote for a renewal. So there's, you know, that's a dynamic that's very similar to earlier polling that public polling that Parks did late last year, which showed the same thing. The more people learned about the cuts, the more willing they were to vote for an increase. I think what's changed in this poll is that the price sensitivity of voters has increased. It's really about the money. So we, in addition, we broke it down. So, you know, from the outset, we asked them this big question, you know, would you increase your taxes? But we wanted to know, you know, what the intensity of their feeling was for different assets and functions of Portland Parks and Rec. And we wanted to do it in a way that really forced them to express the level of their support. So we asked them, would you pay significantly more? We asked in terms of money, would you pay more? Would you pay a lot more? Would you cut it? Would you cut it a lot? So I think this is kind of relevant, although we didn't test the tree code. We do have tests. We do have trees on here in various ways. So, you know, I think the big takeaway from this is when you take the items one by one, almost every single facet of Portland Parks and Rec has a majority of support for people who are willing to increase funding for that thing. And you can see the things that really resonate here are providing that level of support for lower income families, people experiencing poverty. When framed in those terms, it's really important to people. And we saw also that it was important even to people who were against a tax increase. A lot of people in District 1 and District 4 clearly were showing that they valued this part of what Parks had to offer. They just did not feel able to support a tax increase. I think the second big takeaway is, you know, and this is information that might be helpful as you're thinking about some of the things I've heard earlier in this meeting, responding to the mayor's budget. Those elements of I can't see the room. Was that Zeri Santner who was talking about what happens when you cut? It's not Zeri?
No.
Oh, somebody, I can't see any of you individually, but somebody was making a very impassioned case for, you know, the snowball effect of once you start winding these things down, what it does to the community and what it does to the way people feel about their parks. And that comes through really strongly in the polling. Picking up trash, cleaning up bathrooms, making minor repairs. These are all in the very top of what people prioritize around their parks funding. And then below that, you have sort of a bundle of keeping things beautiful, green, ecological, are sort of in the next tier. And then below that, and I want to emphasize, still in the high 50s, low 60s, are the, you know, larger, you know, the facilities like the splash pads and some of the programming and community centers and planting and maintaining trees, as we talked about. So I would call that the third tier, but it's all very high, very, very high. The only things that are not as high are things that are relevant only to a small, you know, only to the people who are really using them individually, specifically swim lessons and dog parks. I think, what did you say, Adina, the third of Portlanders own dogs? So they care about dog parks very much.
More dogs than children per capita.
Well, there you go. There you go. So people are willing to, but you can see from everything above that is over 50%. And I would even say people talking about operating large community centers, I think when you talk about big buildings, it doesn't evoke the same kind of support, but the things that happen in those buildings are very important to people. And this is just we tested a lot of positive messages to see what really moved the dial for people in their level of support. Number one, I think it is, you know, it's a sign of our times that the LA fires and the fire risk is on people's minds. They find that the most compelling message, that we need to take care of our natural areas and reduce that risk. Maintenance is a close second, and the notion that we could stand to lose or that our quality of life is at risk, also very, very strong messages. The messages that are the weakest are, and you know, this is the theme I'm going to keep coming back to, when we say, hey, this isn't a lot of money for the benefit that we get, whether you frame it in terms of the money that you would pay per month or the money that you would pay in a year, people strongly disagree with that. They just think this is real money. And that's the, I mean, I think that's a real takeaway from registered voters right now. So when you go through the data and sort of parse it out, you have 38% of people asked are a consistent no all the way through the poll, no matter what you say. And 43% are consistent yeses. So like I said earlier, like there's not a ton of movement in the middle. People are pretty much feel they can or want to pay for an increase, or they don't. The 18% that we would call swing is people who at some point or another in the poll maybe went one way or the other in a question. And so what that indicates to us is they probably have a bent already. They're probably soft supporters or soft opponents of the measure, but it means that they can be affected by messaging depending on what happens. So the reason we bring that up is with a small margin and low intensity of support, that does make this vulnerable to opposition campaigns if there were negative messages. So just wanted to bring that up. There's a slide in here that I should have included and did not include, which is the specifics of price sensitivity. So it really matters which dollar figure you give people. So when you give them the amount per month that's equivalent to the current 80-cent levy, which is $15 a month, well over 60, mid 60s are more than they say. Just based on that sentence alone, would you pay $15 a month for parks? 65% approval. And that approval just goes down at each level of increase. So when you get to $1.20, $1.40, it steps down. There's still support at $1, let's say $1.20, it's mid 50s. So, you could see a level of increase that people would be comfortable with, but at the equivalent amount of $1.60 or $1.80 a month, that support really does drop. So you can tell from that this is about the money primarily. So some of the bigger conclusions are, just to reiterate, the renewal at 80 cents is as close to a slam dunk as you could get. The levy increase is more difficult in the current environment that we're talking about. It would be risky, and a funded opposition could do some damage. But that said, that majority holds, and we tested negative messages as well. That majority does hold all the way through the polling, but we get more support the less we ask for. So that's a dynamic that the council is, in a heated debate about right now, and thinking about how they're going to deal with that moving forward in the process. And, just to end on a very positive note, Portlanders are in the park constantly, over 70%, have overwhelmingly favorable views of it, and are just feeling a little cash strapped at the moment. So I think those are the major takeaways. In terms of what we do with this, we've been trying to figure it out, to be honest, because it's the first referral of a measure by this current form of government. So we've been engaged. The parks folks did hearings already in front of 2 committees, and we've been engaged in briefing most of the counselors as well, with Jessica from the foundation, trying to understand where they're at and offering them input as advocates from the outside. It seems like there'll be some kind of I would say that Council President Pertl-Guiney is extremely supportive, a champion of parks, and wants to convene a core group quickly and have probably a council work session at the beginning of June. So we don't have an exact date yet, but you could anticipate that would be, and I do understand that they would be taking testimony at that. The final levy language has to be wrapped up. I don't have the exact date in front of me, but towards the end of June. And then the last day that you can legally refer to the ballot is July 16th. So that's our timeline for the levy right now. So happy to take questions on what we've learned or what we're thinking.
Thank you so much. I'm gonna open the floor to the board. Just to remind everybody, we're gonna have to pause at 6:45 just to check in to see if we have any public comments. But until then, we have about 10 minutes. All right.
I saw somebody had a hand up. Adrienne?
I will go ahead. I will call on folks.
Oh, good. Thanks.
Okay. With some help from Michelle. So let's go ahead and start online, and then it looks like we have, I'm just gonna go Ali, Suen, and then Matt. We'll do a thread, so if you're continuing the conversation, go ahead and let me know, you can jump in, but if you're trying to change or start another, ask a different question, we'll move in that direction, so go ahead. Who's the first person?
I think Adrian was first.
Adrian and then Casey.
Okay, thank you, go ahead.
Yeah, just a quick comment, based on the results. So, to me, the results are quite concerning. When we were first presented with sort of a doubling of the levy, my response as a citizen was, wow. And since that time, I don't feel that the communication has been detailed about the why. I totally believe it at face value that to maintain services, we have to double it, but we have to make that case to the public, right? And so, what is it that's driving those increased costs? Are there any things, that where the city and Parks and Rec are gonna save? So that's one part of it. And I'm sure, that's some tough work to figure out in such short order, but I hope we can do it. And related to that is, I think there's a very similar situation going on now with Portland Public Schools, where, I think there's a good shot that levy, is gonna die. And it's a very similar kind of thing, like what is driving that incredible amount of spending? Then the other part of it is that, what is it that we can do in this short period of time to get the right messages on board? Anyway, I'll stop.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah, is there a question you want me to answer?
That is kind of a question, yeah, it can be embedded in your responses to others, that'd be fine too.
No, I think that Sarah is prepared to speak to the question.
Yeah, I can speak to the cost drivers piece, Noah, unless you wanted to take that.
Yeah, go ahead. I just would
Yep.
say that I worked with a lot of help from Sarah on a memo called The Parks We Want, that I think is available to everybody. It's we've been sharing it, and we take a crack at that messaging around what are the drivers and why we're in this situation. So just that's available to you. Go ahead, Sarah.
I think it was sent out to the board by Michelle earlier today.
Yes.
So just broadly, and we've shared this information with the Financial Sustainability Working Group, but the kind of the breakdown of the categories is just over 50% of kind of the cost drivers that have driven cost increases is related to personnel. Another 16% is sort of revenue reductions, either in the form of general fund reductions we've taken or levy revenue forecasts. So they're about $6 million lower than they were initially projected to be. I think we've talked with this group, but about kind of the depressed value of especially commercial real estate in downtown Portland. About 13% is related to internal materials and services, and 17 related to external materials and services. So external materials and services are things where we're contracting with outside entities. We've seen 105% increase in those types of costs over the life of the current levy. Internal materials and services is something where another city bureau is providing a service. That might be rent we pay, or like fleet costs or city attorney costs. Those have gone up 90%. On the personnel side, we've also been looking at how much of the personnel increase was related to just if we had kept the same amount of FTE and not added any positions at all to do increased service, how much would our costs have gone up? So we've shared that analysis, and that's actually the majority of the cost increase is related to that. We've seen about 35% increase over the first 3 years of the levy per hour worked of personnel. Those are, PERS, cost of living increases, city labor agreements. There's a variety of things that have contributed to that. And then we have added personnel as well, and that has contributed to the overall cost increase. So that's sort of the general sense of where those things have come from. But as Noah mentioned, he did send out the memo. We've also shared materials, and we could share it with the full board that we've shared with the Financial Sustainability Working Group as well.
Thank you. Casey.
Casey, you're muted.
I want to make sure Claudio didn't have an add-on. He was there for a little while, and he wasn't going to ask a question. He might have a clarification.
No, Sarah nailed it. And
Okay.
so I see.
So I've got a request and a question. The request is, I don't think the slide deck you just showed was sent out. I think it was a slightly different one, and I would appreciate it if you could send out that slide deck to us.
We
Yeah.
have, just so you know, I've been reluctant. It's not great to have the actual deck circulating in the public. It is a public record, but it just makes it to the papers very quickly.
Okay.
So we tried to pull out the most important pieces and put it in that memo, and I hope that's okay. And I'm absolutely happy to share anything from it.
The one page I was really interested in is the priority of likes in various areas, like programming for folk, maintenance of parks. That slide I would really like to see again. And I don't know
Okay,
if there's
yeah,
any
I
way you
think
could
that
send
would
it to
be
me.
okay. Yeah.
Okay, great. And by the way, thank you very much for doing the presentation.
Oh, no.
My question, and it's more confusion on this, is that you did mention, and you've got some references to maintenance, although I believe that maintenance is not capital maintenance, it's operational maintenance. And there is a big push in terms of having to deal with the capital maintenance backlog. And I don't know if you tried to make that fit anywhere in terms of a levy. If the levy got squished a little bit in order to allow a portion, at least lip service, to capital maintenance projects, but I just didn't know if there was a combination in there at all.
Yeah, we did. It was on our minds when we did it. So if you look here, what happened? There is a bullet, a question that is distinct from the ongoing maintenance, which is this repairing and preserving buildings, facilities, community centers. So that's capital maintenance. People don't know what that means, so we described it to them. And you can see that it's the third highest priority for people when you describe it that way. At the same time, we did a split sample, which means we asked some people one question and some another. So the difference here between $1.60 and $1.80 is that we add on improving the condition of parks facilities, which is what we had in mind with capital maintenance. And I think what I could say is people value it, but it's not the driver here. The cost is the driver. So, it definitely helps in telling the story, but I don't think it's going to swing a lot of votes on its own.
Great, thank you. It looks like we're at time as far as with public comments. Anybody online? I probably haven't had anybody.
If you
put in
are
the chat.
online and would like to give public comment, please raise your hand. Nice.
All right, let's keep going. We're gonna keep on going, and if somebody happens to be outside, we'll make sure that they have time to speak. So we'll go with Matt, Ally, and then Suen. All right, Matt, you have the floor.
Noah, thanks for your presentation. I'm curious, the $1.80 referral, does that inclusion, did you ask the question whether that inclusion might negatively impact future asks for capital? Because it's only meeting sort of a fraction of capital needs of parks. So would people be sort of less inclined to vote for that in the future?
I think that's probably too complex a question for a poll. And we really wanted to focus on the levy in this poll. There have been past polls that combined bond and levy questions, combined levy with fire and arts and stuff. So given the timeline we were on, we just wanted as much clarity as possible on the levy itself. So I can't say that I have any new information to provide for you on that. I will say that from my experience, people tend to vote a la carte for the measures. I don't know that I don't know that they're mutually exclusive, if that's what you're getting at. I think that given the support that people understand for that, especially if the economy were to stabilize a little bit, I think that would be a reasonable thing to talk to people about.
Ally.
Yeah, so I'm wondering in terms of what city council's conversations, it seems to me from this poll, and I get that we are in a bizarre economic time that is very uncertain, but that people are happy to supplement the parks budget, but are not interested or as interested in sharing a larger load of what should be a city obligation, right? These are the city's bills, these are the things the city should pay for. And so where does the public drop off in terms of, this is what we pay already, we pay to take care of our resources, we pay for parks through our taxes, and you're being asked for more. So I guess my question, and this is long-term, if a bigger levy is not going to be as popular, the city needs to allocate more funds to parks in general, and the levy is not the ultimate. I mean, we know it's a Band-Aid option and it's a problem anyway, but I'm hoping that it can be, maybe this polling can also be used to leverage city council and the mayor that you can't keep relying on levy, especially if it's going to keep increasing, because you are going to lose the public in the process. So I feel like that's got to be part of a bigger narrative. I understand we have an issue now, and this levy is an issue now, but thinking about the next levy, you know, when you start listing out $400, whatever it happens to be, that's real money to people. And it shifts the I'm supplementing versus, oh, it's not just a supplement, I'm actually paying quite a bit towards a thing that is a city bureau. So more comment for now and the future.
No, I think it's everything that you said is valid. I guess I'll just offer a comment back. I mean, levies, especially levies that are not adjusted for inflation, are not a good way to fund a city service. It's, I think you heard pretty clearly from Sarah the inflationary pressures on parks, and you just can't do the same thing for the same price 5 years later. So that's a problem. And yeah, we're presenting to council that, one way to solve this problem is through a levy, but the core problem itself is the funding of parks. And so there are other ways to do that. And the more that they fund in this year's budget through the general fund, the less pressure there is on the levy. And we've made, yes, that's part of the conversation. And I agree with you that putting that, if you consider it as a general fund problem with declining revenues, putting that onto a tax measure, I feel like people on this call are feeling empathy for Portlanders who are feeling stressed. And I will say that this ballot dropped right when Trump announced his tariffs. So it's possible we caught people at an all-time low in their feeling of confidence around their retirement plans and things like that. But honestly, we don't know what it'll be like in November. So, I think that's the reality of what we're living through. I appreciate your comment.
Thank you. Can I dovetail off of that, Susan? Just to dovetail off of what Ally is saying, people return on their investment, so to speak, right? We put our tax money in. What happens if folks say no? I mean, what is the narrative if folks say no to the levy for whatever reason? Then what? What is the scenario that is at play at this point? You keep on coming back for more money, and you're saying that there's less services. No, it doesn't pass. Then what? What is the scenario?
So the range of scenarios that we're kicking, obviously the nightmare scenarios, we don't have a renewal or an increase. And then you're talking about, I believe, something like a 50% cut in the current service level at parks. So, and nobody, sorry.
And the only reason why I'm bringing it up is because in the budget, You know, we're hearing folks talk about it as if the levy is going to pass. But if it
Well,
doesn't, then what? I think we need
Yeah.
to have a narrative around that as well, is all I'm saying.
Yeah,
Not
I
that we
think
wanna
it's a
encourage it.
I think it's a reasonable assumption to budget for an 80-cent renewal, which is what everybody's been, that's what Parks, the administrative budget said, that's what the mayor's budget said. And that polling does support that. So, it is a big, it's a big question for council. If you go in November, it's a higher risk for an increase. There is risk. One scenario that we've discussed is that you could still return to the ballot in May before the expiration of the parks levy and come back with a lower amount, like a renewal, so that you don't have to deal with the doomsday scenario of having no levy whatsoever. But there's risk there. So that's one way to look. And then I think the other way, some counselors feel like take what you can get, grab the 80-cent renewal and figure out where to get more money later. And we've heard the full spectrum in our conversations with council.
Thank you, Suan, go ahead.
I guess a little bit along the line of the past conversation in the past several minutes. The timing, this is gonna come out on the ballot in November. And in May, we have this huge item from public school. And then with all the tariffs, the end of the year, season holidays coming, God knows what's going to happen. People would have a little bit tighter purse string by the end of the year, right, with a lot of frustrations too. I wonder, we can, I don't know if your survey have gotten any vibe as to what's coming onto the ballot that we are next to that will also ask for some money. And then all of a sudden, we are not going in as one item, but then there are other levy, bond, whatever it is. And then all of a sudden they're thinking, I got $1 and how am I going to share this? Or I'm going to just keep everything myself. And city, you have to figure out where you can get the money. Because it's the end of the year that people will be grumpy. I don't know if you get a vibe of that or not from your survey.
I mean, I get a grumpy vibe. I don't know if it'll be related to the holidays. I think I'm absolutely certain that the dive that people's 401k portfolios took right after the tariffs, and I think that affected this poll. And so, I think one way to look at it is this is the low end of support for parks for an increase to funding. So that's good news. It could go up. I think everything you're saying is true, though. We're living through times that I certainly can't predict where we'll be in November. So there's risk.
Thank you. We are at 6:54, so 6 minutes, I believe, Patty.
I think Ally was.
And then Ally.
Don wants, I'll go after you.
These are gonna the last two, so.
So, Suan mentioned the bond, the $1.8 billion bond for schools. If that bond does not pass, would you do another poll? Because it may, it's where people want to give their money. Being hit at both ends, I think somebody's gonna lose. So has there been any thought of doing another poll, depending on the results?
I don't think the folks I work for will have money for another poll, and there's not enough time really to get another one in the field and analyze it. So I guess the short answer is no. Yeah, no, but you're right. People are wondering what will happen with the. I guess there's different ways to interpret it. Some people think if it goes down, it'll be a bad omen. I think you're saying, well, maybe it's good because people will choose to pay for one thing and not the other. I don't know. I don't have a crystal ball on that one. Yeah.
Ally, go ahead.
The only numbers I saw floated out there were the 80 cents, $1.60 and $1.80. Are there other variations of that, you know, the 99 cent, you know, so, or like the
Yeah,
$1.20
yeah.
or whatever it is, and how those would play to be able to gain some
Yeah.
ground, but still have some assurance?
Yeah, here, let me see if I can find the one, yes, I found it. No, wait, yes, I found it. Okay, I'm gonna just share one more slide, and then I apologize, I have to get my daughter's soccer tryouts, so I'm gonna, if you'll forgive me, this is probably the last thing I'll show. The answer is yes, so we did.
Which daughter?
We're looking at your kids on the beach or at the.
Oh, you're looking at my kids. Oh, no, that's her.
Good luck to her.
Thanks.
There it is.
Wait, so it is. Shoot, I can't, there we go, okay. No, this is the wrong, I'm sorry, let me just, here, I got it now, Here we go. So the answer to your question is yes, and this is the price sensitivity I talked about before. So this $15 is equivalent to renewal at 80 cents. So you can see across the board support in all 4 districts. At 22, which I believe is $1.20.
That's right.
We lose support in District 1, but we're still at a decent amount of support overall, 56%. At 26%, we're at $1.40, and it goes down to 54%, and we lose District 4 goes down to 50-50. So you can see, I think the answer to your question is yes. People are price sensitive, and somewhere in here, $25 a month, there's a larger majority of people who are willing to say, yeah, I'll take a look at that. When you get into that $1.80 level or $1.60 level, you do lose a lot of support, and it gets a lot riskier. So yes, the answer is there might be some room to negotiate.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. Appreciate it.
Good luck to your daughter, Noah.
Yeah,
Thank you, Noah.
thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right, folks, we have just a couple minutes. Any last thoughts?
I'll just see if there's other follow-up questions. You can send them to myself and Sarah, and then we can confer with Jessica and Noah for any follow-up questions that anyone thinks of after the fact.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, board members, for a very passionate conversation. And I'm gonna go ahead and adjourn the meeting, and looks at 6:59. Folks.
Well done. I wasn't sure if we were gonna make it, Dr. Foreman.